and welcome to this episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. My name is Diane Collin. I am a woman with short hair, blue eyes, and glasses, and today I wear a blue top. Behind me are an electronic piano and white shelves with books. This series presents artists, academics, and project leaders who dedicate their time and energy to a better accessibility for people with disabilities in the arts. You can find more of these conversations on our website, artsably.com, which is spelled ArtsAbly.com. Today, ArtsAbly is in conversation with Tamar Bresge, an artist, writer, and educator from Toronto, currently in the creative writing program at California Institute of the Arts. You can find the resources mentioned by Tamar Bresge during this episode on ArtsAbly's website in the blog section.
Hi, my name is Tamar Bresge. I am 28. I am born and raised in Toronto, Ontario, and I use she, her pronouns. And that's me. I am an artist, writer, and educator. My practice is rooted in exploring the intersection of text, literature, language, and image. And in addition to that, and in complement to it, I am hearing impaired and vision impaired. I have something called Usher syndrome, which is a form of retinitis pigmentosa. It causes degenerative hearing and vision loss. And I think this kind of has informed my spirit to be very enthusiastic and passionate about taking in as much of the world as I can. So I'm very curious by nature. I like to say when I'm teaching to my students and also to myself that I think the best way to approach the world is not by looking for answers, but by always looking to ask better questions. So, given my very playful and curious nature, I, of course, had to do a playful and curious project for this program. So for my capstone, I undertook a very big poetry endeavor, which is blackout poetry. It's a form of poetry where you erase from a given text to create something new out of something existing. So I decided to take the text A Room with a View, which is a novel by E.M. Forster. It's one of my favorite novels, and it's also just chock-a-block full of really rich, beautiful language about looking, seeing, art, and the sublime. So I loved E.M. Forster's name, and then also carved my own in a gesture of co-authorship as I created this new big project of poetry out of his novel. So I take the existing text and I carve out a new piece. So I like to think of each page existing as its own individual piece, but also the whole collection having a logical form and flow, but not necessarily needing to be read from start to finish. I think each page is something you can happen upon. And then I'm really curious about the page of text as a sort of canvas in itself, that there's such a sonic quality to the silence of the negative space of the page. And there's a very visual aspect to the kind of sporadic nature, the freckling of words and punctuation that is determined to be left across the page really intentionally. So this final page reads, "I think I interfere, never forgive me. I wish to be a nuisance." Which is quite true. So I have finished with this text at this time, and I'm looking forward to trying to shop it around for publication. You can find more about me, Tamar Bresge, at my website, which is tamarbresge.com.
Welcome to this new episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. Today I am with Tamar Bresge, who is a multi-talented artist and writer from Toronto, and she's currently in the creative writing program at California Institute of the Arts. Welcome, Tamar.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I am excited too. So I met Tamar thanks to an organization called Access Now. and they are in Toronto, and they defend the digital rights of people. And they are famous for their work in assessing places and creating a map with this information collected during these assessments. So they work for a few years now. And recently, they started a new program for young people with disabilities to be mentored by peers of professionals, who have already faced some of the situations that the participants of the program might face later. So the aim was really to accompany them and talk with them during a 6 weeks program. And I was paired with Tamar. I was her mentor. And not only did Tamar a fantastic job during the program, but I also discovered her work as an artist and her multiple activities in the arts. So I invited her to talk about it.
Very
So,
exciting.
yes. Um, well, I want to ask you as an introduction if you could present yourself and also provide a visual description.
Sure. I'm going to start with a visual description. My name is Tamar Bresge. I use she, series pronouns, and I have kind of like collarbone length, dark blonde hair. I got pretty thick eyebrows. I'm wearing a blue shirt and a little gold butterfly necklace that my mother got me. And yeah, I feel like that kind of covers. I'm sitting in like a Zoom background that's a painting that I really love that's just like soft blues. It's actually just a art studio interior with very, very soft blue and oranges. Um, and then the non-visual stuff, yeah, I am an artist, writer, and educator. So I hold a master's in studio art from the School of Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts University in Boston. After finishing that master's, I taught at Tufts University in the experimental college for a bit, which was really exciting. And before that, I went to OCAD University in Toronto. I majored in sculpture installation and I minored in creative writing. And so here I am now doing another master's in creative writing at California Institute of the Arts. So I'm speaking from my apartment in Southern California where it's like 40 degrees here every day. And definitely the most tan I've ever been in my life, I guess.
Is the air conditioning working well?
Yes, thank you for asking. My air conditioning wasn't working for almost 2 weeks in this like heat wave. So I went a little heat fever delusional, but I'm much better now. Thank you for asking.
Okay, so I was wondering what brought you to the arts? Did you have a family that was particularly attracted to the arts world, or did you one day discover that yourself and say, that's what I want to do when I grow up?
Yeah, I love this question because I don't have a super simple answer for it. And I think this is like something that anybody who knows me will probably know. I can't ever give like a one simple directive answer for anything, but I think one of the most important pieces in my interest in the arts is my grandmother, my father's mother, who passed away last year. She was just so passionate about like culture and exchanging culture and reading, going to museums, going to plays. Like she would take me to all of these experiences from a really young age, and at the same time, I was really lucky to travel as a child. And my mom likes art. My dad likes art. Neither of them work necessarily in the arts, but we would go to the museums that you're kind of supposed to go to on our trips and like enjoy those experiences. And I don't even think I understood like as a child how lucky I was to be so immersed in art and culture, which I'm deeply appreciative for now, and also a little envious of my younger self that she maybe could have paid a little bit more attention. But I always really enjoyed the arts from that perspective. I was really into film and writing in high school. I had really like formative experiences in one of my high school writing classes, and I was really timid to be an artist. I didn't really think that it was a title that I deserved because I wasn't good at technically drawing the way that like my second grade art teacher pointed to my best friend and was like, "You can draw a representation of a real object, so you're a good artist." Whereas, like, I could not draw a representation of something, so I inherently was not a good artist. It took a long time for me to let myself, I think, be brave to just really try and make art and not worry as much about the labels about what I was. And yeah, I actually went to university for something completely different for 1 year, wasn't enjoying it, took a year off to work, applied to art school, and I've been an artist ever since. I say artist in quotation marks because like even now I find it's a strange word, maybe. It comes with a lot of a lot of baggage, a lot of presumptions about what that means to be an artist, but I definitely think I'm an artist. Long
You
answer.
are. You are.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah,
Did
so,
you did you have
sorry,
an
go ahead.
aha moment? Like this aha moment that says, okay, I'm gonna stop what I was doing in whatever I was doing before and go to an arts university.
Yeah, again, it's like not the one moment. I had an aha stretch of time where I actually think I had to be, and I don't want to romanticize this like tortured artist narrative because I really don't like it, but I got so unhappy with what I was doing. And I feel like I got to a point where I was like, there's like one thing that I think will like feed my soul. Like there's one thing that brings me light and brings me joy and makes me really happy to like be alive. And why am I not doing it? So yeah, I guess it became pretty clear that at a pretty tough time there was really just one thing that was making me so happy, and it was looking at art, making art, engaging with the arts. At that time, it was photography that I was really, really curious about because, as I didn't say in my introduction, I have a blinding eye disease. So I have, for listeners who are familiar or not, I have retinitis pigmentosa, and I have a very specific form of it, which is Usher syndrome. So together, this means that I have degenerative vision loss and hearing loss. So I have tunnel vision, which means that my visual field just gets narrower and narrower. You can imagine like looking through binoculars, or even as extreme as like looking through straws. If you hold straws up to your eyes and just try and see through a very narrow field. This also means I have very, very, very little night vision, which is one of the first ways I knew something was wrong with my vision, was like going up the steps in the movie theater. If we came 5 minutes late to the movie, it was like very difficult for me as a kid. And then I also wear hearing aids for my low hearing. So photography, I think allowing myself to really work in photography and embrace visual art, I do think part of why I was so hesitant and afraid to work in it is that when I was 15 and I was diagnosed with this disease, the first thing she said to me is plan for your future, like plan a career that you won't be able to see, basically. I mean, what was I supposed to do with that? Like, it made me feel like immediately something that I loved so much was not allowed and off limits and taboo and wrong and just this, like, like there was a concrete wall like 6 feet wide between me and the possibility of working in the arts. It took a lot of work for me to, I think, just overcome, and I still work on it, to overcome that mental blockade of what I think I can and can't do because of words like blindness and because of words like artist. Those things don't often go together in the same sentence. So but that's what I find so exciting now, is smushing those two things together and seeing what can happen. So photography is how I got my start because I really like the idea of trying to capture like an entire lifetime of feeling in one single image, one single moment. And that was the original assignment for me as an artist.
Yeah, that was photography, but then you went through so many different streams and
I
one
know.
I would say you are a poet who works with words and puts that in a visual and audio and everything. So I guess it ties to photography too, because
Yeah.
um what was your process when you were trying to to take pictures of something with your tunnel vision?
There's like the technical aspect and then there's the artistic aspect. So from a technical aspect, looking through the like lens finder of a camera is actually very liberating because it's this tiny piece, right? It actually really complements having tunnel vision because you put your eye up to this tiny hole, but the because of the shape of the lens, you actually see so much more. So I feel like by looking through the camera body, I do think it invites access to a lot more visual information, which is like exciting. Even talking about it makes me feel like I don't know, hungry in this like creative way. Like I want it, I crave it, I need it. So there's that piece of it. And then artistically, I actually was using text in most of my early photography. I remember in my first film class, which was really scary and challenging because I was developing film in a dark room where a dark room is hard for anybody. I have almost no vision, right? So I'm literally like developing film almost completely blind, like very, very little vision. And my my first really exciting project where I knew I was shooting on film, I did this series of photos that just said the phrase "it is what it is," and I scratched it into the skin of a banana. I wrote it on a mirror and like lipstick. I put it I made like a latte, and you know you can like kind of do art latte art on the top. Like I use like cinnamon sprinkle to write "it is what it is" very delicately, and um yeah, kind of like thinking about the opportunity to bring aphoristic text, like an aphorism, a phrase as small as possible with like maximum impact, minimal text is how I try to, I guess, fuse writing and photography right from the get-go.
But also traveling. You did that during traveling.
Uh, yeah, I did with the I miss places that never existed. Was what my like I don't know. It's like my motto, maybe. Like it's a little piece of text art that I just make again and again and again in many different ways. So like I put it on a t-shirt and stood in front of Michelangelo's David in Florence and set up a very particular self-portrait to stand in space and time with, this very old, very acclaimed statue, which is in this really grand museum, which it also wasn't even built for that space. So there's this collision of the time that Michelangelo made the David. There's the time of like a few hundred years later when it was placed in the building it's in now. And then there's the time of me coming in like 2018 wearing this shirt I made, I miss places that never existed, but also taking the photo on a vintage camera instead of on a contemporary digital camera, like having that shot on film and this kind of anachronistic play with time and space. This all feels like very um I think play is the most important word for my practice. Like I really try to be playful in sometimes like with levity, but also with like serious curiosity and um contemplation and like dare I say philosophy. Like I'm uh very curious about my relationship to myself, my relationship to the landscape, and my relationship to other, like everyone else, everything else. And uh yeah, so I do take I take the poetry into space and I take myself through space, I guess.
Speaking of poetry, there, there is a specific project that I know of because I followed the different steps of this project. And can you talk a little bit about what you did during the mentorship program?
Yes, I'd be so happy to talk about this. It is like still at the very forefront of my mind. So in my poetic practice, one of the ways that I really like to work is through erasure poetry, which is when you take an existing text and redact from it, remove from it, erase from it. There are different visual ways to do it. It's like I've done work where I like use a Sharpie and literally black out and like leaving those black lines feels really intentional. For this work, I digitally erased around words from every page of a book to make a whole collection of new poems. So I wanted to work with the book A Room with a View, which is one of my favorite books, also very tied to Florence, which has felt very tied to my artistic practice. And so I took A Room with a View by E.M. Forster, and every single page I treated like a canvas, I guess, a kind of an existing canvas, and I just erased and kind of carved a new poem out of every single individual page to a total of, I think it's 206 pages in 6 weeks, which was definitely my most ambitious poetry project in scale and in just like duration. It was so exciting to finish it. As you know, I feel like Diana, every week I was like, I'm not going to finish it in time. Okay, I'm going to finish it in time. Okay, no, there's no way I'm going to finish it in time. And then I somehow pulled it off, which I'm really proud of. And yeah, I'm kind of sitting on this manuscript now of a very big, very intentional poetry collection that I guess the most important piece of it for me is the book is literally called A Room with a View, which I've retitled A View. And there's just so much language about looking, like about vision, but particularly about something I'm so interested in, which is the language that we use for looking and seeing as this language that we use for like knowledge and affirmation of like the self. That like I've said this before in public speaking, but we use the words like to see you, like I see you, as though we're saying I know you, like I know you deeply, I know you intimately, I know you on this kind of spiritual or ethereal level that you can know someone. So there's so much rich language of looking and seeing and art and humor in that text that it just seemed like the perfect block of marble, if you will, for me to carve from. So, yeah.
And I was also very impressed by the text itself, like the result of the poetry that comes through it. And when I was reading it, because I come from music, I could hear some level of music. And with poetry, you already have that, right? With poetry, you have the music of the musicality of the poem itself and the rhythm and the words, and everyone can have a different music version of this poetry, right? And
Yeah.
I was having mine when I was reading your text, and I was like, that would be really, I would hear that and that kind of things, that background behind, and I could see the pose being here and feel that. And that was very impressive because you did that with how many pages? Remind us?
Over 200, like 206, 210, maybe. Yeah. Thank you for bringing up music because that's actually such an important part of the work to me, which I completely missed addressing. That I often speak about this work as being like sheet music and kind of like a musical notation of breath and sound and like the body as an instrument through reading. I I leave really intentional punctuation. Some pages get no punctuation, some pages can be almost only punctuation. Where punctuation gets left in terms of negative space, I really think of this as like beats, notes, rest stops, like signatures. So it's really gratifying from a musician to hear from you that that comes through on the page.
Yes, and I would, if one day you go further with it and you record it, I would love to participate in
Yes,
that.
please. Yeah, I would love that as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I was also curious. So we talked about the portrait of words, the photography. Are you also painting?
I love painting. I think it's my like least talented area, but I enjoy it incredibly. And I think maybe because I don't think I'm an excellent painter, maybe it's the only medium where I really let myself take off the pressure, do whatever I want, like mix, like hit the canvas with that brush, see what happens. Maybe it's my most experimental just because I'm so not trying to impress myself because I never impress myself that I just get to enjoy it. I do paint. I love it.
So with this diversity of activities and everything accessibility related is also something, right? You have your own access needs that go to your arts. And I
Yeah.
was wondering, what for you is accessibility in the arts? What does it mean for you?
I I love this question and I struggle with this question, and it brings me back to my hesitancy to say like anything means one thing to me, because I think everything means many things is kind of at the core of who I am as a person. But I mean, number one, accessibility means a seat at the table for everybody. Accessibility means that you're not an exception. You're like an equal, insignificant participant to anybody else. Like, I don't think there should have to be this this feeling uh, of needing, that you're needing more than someone else. Like, when I was, I struggled with this so much when I was in both of my visual arts programs, my undergrad and my master's, of feeling like I'm difficult, I'm needing so much more than the people in my cohorts, that I'm afraid to vocalize it, or I'm vocalizing it and I'm afraid that people will think I'm difficult, right? Um, my younger sister said to me, she's so wise, when I was struggling, I guess pretty openly emotionally with trying to navigate how much I wanted to share about my disability in my previous education. She said to me, like, accommodation doesn't take away from anyone. It only gives. Like, it only opens up space. Like, no one loses by an accommodation being made. And she doesn't have a disability. And she just said it so simply to me. Like, she could see that, where I was carrying like years of feeling like a burden, feeling so much burdenship on the inside that I wouldn't even ask to see if people would make me feel like I was a burden. I was so internalized. The biggest thing that I'd like to see, and I think the most realistic step in making change, is opening up communication. I I teach undergrads, right? Like, I teach first years who are at the first time in the university level classroom, learning like who they want to be, what they want to do, most importantly, how they want to write, how they want to communicate themselves to the world. And try my darndest to teach with radical honesty. I try to be radically honest with my students about my body, uh, appropriately, like what I was gonna say suffer with, but I hate that word because I don't suffer. Like, about how my body works in a way that helps me help them and helps them help me in space. Like, on my first day of introductions, I say who I am, what I'm doing, what I'm studying, a bit of professional history, and then I tell them that I'm low vision, I'm low hearing. This is how it manifests in the classroom. These are things that I've done with students in the past that have helped me. If you notice that I'm not seeing you and your hand is up, I'm not ignoring you, I'm not seeing you. So if you guys can help each other, if you see that I'm missing something, please let me know. I think starting from the baseline of making those kinds of conversations not only okay, but encouraged, welcome, comfortable, easy, something like, I'm at a point now where it's basically a script to me. There's very little emotional cost to say that because I'm comfortable at this point. But the first time I said that to a room of students, not only it was my first time teaching, but it was my first time telling a group of students I had a disability and worrying what that would mean. So that's extremely emotionally expensive. And I can appreciate how that's emotionally expensive for other people to get started. So all I can say is, again, like, radical honesty, trying to use, like, I don't know, the thick skin I built up over the years to hopefully lead by example and make that a more comfortable, inviting, and um elevating space for students with any kind of disability or otherness to feel comfortable, and the very least sharing with me about it and sharing in their needs, but hopefully sharing with their peers as well. And I have to say, like, it's been a really, really rewarding experience so far. I do feel like I've had really incredible classroom environments that I'm really appreciative for. And I think that, as an educator, I'm focusing on the classroom environment for accessibility, but I think these are lessons that we take outside the classroom, like every single moment, right? Like classroom is a space to play and to experiment with safety because there are like rules in place to protect students as they try and learn who they are. So starting groundwork, talking, talking about who we are and making it okay to be who you are out loud.
We were talking about that kind of communication as a means for education for people who don't know what. So in your case, some you have some invisible disabilities. When we meet you, we don't necessarily know that you
Yeah.
have tunnel vision or hearing loss. And we had this conversation with someone who tried to implement some accommodations, but in a way didn't discuss with the people in the classroom, or didn't discuss with the parents, or didn't discuss with the administration. And so it needs to be a real team effort. The students are receptive to what you're saying and they learn from you. But then you learn from them because they will give you some feedback.
Mm.
It's the same with trying to talk about the disability in front of people who don't know anything about disability. But then there's this little, like it goes with the storytelling for me. It goes with the way you are communicating things and say, well, it's fine, but just know that I don't see you if you're here. But it's fine. If you go here, then I see you.
Yeah, and they forget all the time. Like I probably say once a week, I have to say to my students, please remember to speak up. I'm hard of hearing. And I just repeat and I repeat and I repeat. I think because it's an invisible disability, it requires maybe more repetition, but it's a double-edged sword because I think that, there are a lot of things that like people who don't have like who have visible disabilities experience very different things for me. And like I have my cane like literally right here. It's like weird in the background. It sits on my desk. Like I don't really use it because it's a very different experience of being in the world for me. And it gives me so much, but it makes me feel like emotionally insecure. Maybe it makes me feel more vulnerable. It's difficult. So like I tend to kind of only use my identifiers like in the airport where on the one hand, like, yeah, it's really busy, so it's really helpful, but also airports are such transitional spaces that I'm like, well, I'm never seeing any of these people again. Like, it doesn't feel like it matters so much. But even as I say this, I'm like, it does, but it doesn't matter ever. Like, I can hear my own kind of internal struggle with like wanting to lead by example by being like the best, most confident, comfortable, disabled person I can be. But it's not so easy, it's not easy, but I'm working on it.
Do you know Alex Bulmer, the playwright,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So her work is entirely into. So her recent play is called, Perceptual Archaeology, or How to Travel Blind.
Yeah.
And she did a lot of things about trying to explore space and in her own poetry of what she can imagine in instead of based on her memories of something she was seeing and doesn't see anymore, but
Mm,
on um, her own imagination of the space. And that's
yeah.
great. And she has no, I mean, sometimes she travels with the dog, sometimes she is with the cane, sometimes she goes wild and she said, I'm gonna go and travel kilometers and kilometers and go to another country and just or do the Camino. Okay, let's do it. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And yeah, really, your what you say just reminded me of this conversation I had with her about
Mm,
um, adapting to spaces, but also because people see you in a way doing something, like
yeah.
trying to navigate or explore or talk, then it make them think, right? It's never totally, even if you're a student, you have to repeat some things. At a
Yeah.
certain point, they're like, oh yeah. You know, when you say, "Oh, please remind," I remind you that this, then they say, "Oh yeah," inside their head they said, "Oh yeah, I forgot that."
You can see the
You know,
light bulb going off, like, oh, yeah.
oops.
Which like which is such a normal part of being a human being. Like we make mistakes like that all the time. You call somebody by the wrong name because you've only met them once, or I don't know, like you are 10 minutes late to a meeting because you went to the second floor instead of the third. Like those oops moments, they happen all the time. It's very normal, it's very human. I think the like significant consequence is the it's a lot of work to feel like you're teaching people to treat you like a normal person sometimes. Like it is just I have a lot of patience for it, especially in the classroom. But one in like 25 interactions, I'll be like, I just don't feel like being your teacher today, but about disability, not about, I always feel like teaching my students, but I don't feel like teaching you how to speak to me as a disabled person. That's a very, very particular flavor that disabled people get to taste, I think.
True, yes. And
Yeah.
you're teaching what? You told me you're teaching communication, is that correct?
I'm teaching like first year writing, so
First year
essay
writing.
essay writing. Yeah. Um, I am well, the students are in a lecture on like it's really interesting. It's about intimacy and technology, but it's in the critical studies department, which is to basically get them to learn how to write essays, like how to communicate. But it's so cool because I'm teaching it in an art school where they're like very encouraged to, I mean, I at least I really like to encourage, I'm a creative writer, right? I like to experiment with my writing. I like to encourage them like to communicate clearly, but to think about how they can incorporate their own artistic practices into their writing. Like that should be encouraged. I think we're at such a moment of like every moment more and more intersectionality in the arts, but also just in like identity at large, right? So I really like to bring that into the classroom, which again circles back to like if there's a disability that's part of your intersectionality, like bring that into the writing and bring it into the creativity. I don't know. I wish I had had access to that when I was younger. I wish I had had the confidence and the comfort and the knowledge of knowing that that was an option for me because I feel like it saved my life. Like it saves my life every day. I'm really like happy in my life right now, and my relationship to my art and writing practice is like fundamental to that. Like it's that's the biggest part of who I am. Not like my disability is an important identifier to me because it got me here. It's a really important part of my creative practice, but I think my creative practice is my biggest identifier. Like it's so tied to who I am as a person. And I need the disability to be part of that. And like I love and cherish and appreciate and coddle my disability. Like it's such an important part of me and I'm very proud of it. And I'm proud of myself for being at a place in my life where I can love it because it wasn't always like that.
So who were your supports and your inspirations or your the people who made you realize that you were valuable artists? If you had some people to think of, teachers or people in your family or people or artists who
Yeah.
really showed you a way, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I have like the just clearest answer for this question, which is a sad one because my like graduate advisor from my undergraduate program, her name is Danielle Abrams. She changed me. Like she changed me in so many ways. She just hardly knowing me, even from our first conversation, before I even accepted to be a candidate in that program. I think when I talk about the language of saying to somebody, I see you means I know you, I think I'd never felt so seen by somebody until I spoke to her. She just had that magical quality, I think, to make so many people feel like that. and she very sadly passed away right before I finished that program, which was just terrible and still is terrible. Um, I think there was a really beautiful experience that came right after she passed away. The outpouring of so many people who said kind of the exact same thing as me. Like, she made me feel special. She made me feel seen. She made me feel like I could do anything. I was like, wait a second. Like, I thought I was a special one. But I think it's so beautiful because I think she was so special that she could really just see and connect with people, lift people up, make people feel seen, make every person feel valuable, regardless of who they are, where they're coming from, where they're going. Like, that's my biggest inspiration as an educator. Like, that's the person that I want to be. Like, I want to be able to not just open doors for students in the world, but like open doors within themselves. Like, Danielle gave me the gift of believing that what I had to say wasn't just worthy of being heard, but that it was important and something we're fighting for. And she was such a beautiful person, one of the most important people that I've ever encountered in my life. And I mean, my family give me incredible support. I literally couldn't be here. Like, I have two sisters and my parents. I'm so lucky to have all of them. Um, my grandfather, my grandmother, who I miss dearly, dreamed about last night. Like, I have a really beautiful family. I'm one of 10 grandchildren. Um, and I just grew up at least once a week, but usually more having family dinners, or it was like my grandparents, two aunts, two uncles, my parents, myself, my sisters, and then all those first cousins. And I think having this built-in network of like love and like security to like be my weirdest self at least once a week with those cousins, to be the weirdest kid. I was such a weird kid. I'm like 29 and I still feel like I'm a weird kid. But getting that space to like have the safety to kind of like be as weird as you want to be and still feel like loved was like, that's one of the greatest gifts a person could have. And I every day of my life as I get older and older, I appreciate that more and more. Um, but Danielle, I think about Danielle all the time. Danielle and my grandmother Sarah Bresge, probably the two biggest ones for me. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and all your experience. And, I guess by listening to this podcast or visioning this podcast, sometimes you have one person who say, "Oh, that's exactly how I feel. I want to do that." And so you might have inspired someone who's listening today.
I hope so. I'm crossing my fingers. I really hope so. Please let me know if that's been the case for you.
Okay, thank you so much. And
Thank you for having me.
I'm sure we will talk to each other again soon. So
For sure. Okay. Thank you so much, Diane. And thank you for being the best mentor in the program. Literally the best of the best. Like, oh, speaking of people who inspire me, like you're sitting right here in this Zoom room with me. Thank you for sharing your time with me.
it was a pleasure. Really, it was. When the process of pairing the mentors and the mentees, for us at least, they did a very good job, because when I received your documents, I was like already, wow, that's perfect, that's great, yay! I really want to meet her.
Okay, literally exact same experience on my end. Even before before we were officially paired, just when I was like having the conversations about, they asked me what I'm looking for in a mentor. As soon as I kind of described like um they were like, "Oh, I've got someone in mind." And just the way that there was so much certainty, I was like, it's gonna be good. And it was. Yeah, thank you again.
You're welcome. Okay, have a great one,
Okay.
and
You
talk soon.
too. Okay, thanks, Diane. Bye bye.
Bye.